I'm actually kind of scared to do this video. Hey, welcome back to my channel, Endless Pages. I'm Liv, and welcome to today's video, which is a book review of Fourth Wing. I'm actually kind of scared to do this. I've never done a video where I just review like one book in a video. I just don't feel like I'm skilled enough for that, and yeah, I'm a little nervous. I've written down notes about this book. I really wish I had done a reading vlog for this book, or you know, taken notes or annotated as I was reading, because I have a lot of thoughts on this book, and I've just written down all my thoughts now, and I feel like it's really jumpy and all over the place, so I'm nervous for how this is gonna turn out. Yeah, so last month, in the month of June, I read Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This was a kind of like a read-along book club kind of pick for, well, not a book club pick. Meredith from Reading with Merb wanted to read Fourth Wing and knew that a lot of us wanted to read it as well, so I decided to make a Discord so we could all read and chat together, which was really fun. The Discord is in the description. It's such a fun place. Yeah, so that's why I picked up this book, is because I wanted to be part of that read along, and I had heard the hype about this book. There's so much hype about this book at the moment. It's absolutely non-stop. Book Talk, Book Twitter, booktube, it's absolutely everywhere, and I wanted to read this book. I wanted to see, you know, what it was all about, if the hype was true. I don't know why I'm so nervous to film this, but I am. I really am, because yeah, I didn't like this book, and that's why I'm nervous to film a review, is because, like I said, I didn't annotate, I didn't do a reading vlog as I was reading this, and I've just kind of put down all my thoughts now, like a week or so after finishing it, so I hope that I'm able to articulate properly what it is I don't like about this book, because in my notes it's just like absolute rambling, like a mad woman's rambling. One final thing before I start talking about this book, I'm sure you read it in the title, but one final warning just in case. This is going to be absolutely spoiler filled. I am not holding anything back. The reason I didn't put this in a monthly wrap up was because I feel like I couldn't say what I want to say about this book without spoiling, so hence why I'm doing a separate video, and hence why this is absolutely spoiler filled. So if you haven't read Fourth Wing, please do not watch this video. Well, if you haven't read it and you're planning on reading it. Okay, so since this is spoiler filled, I don't think I'm going to describe the plot to you all, because I feel like everyone watching has already read this book. I feel like there's not many people left on the planet in the book community that haven't read this book, but yeah. So first of all, yeah, like I said, I did not like this book at all. The writing in this book I found absolutely atrocious. Like, it is some of the cringiest writing I have ever come across. The characters, what the fuck is her name? Violet's inner dialogue is so cringy and so hard to read. Like, I think it was Erin, because I feel like she's the only other person on the planet that didn't like this book. Erin from Sheepers and Shelves put it really well, as she always did. She described Violet's inner dialogue, the writing kind of like, which I think I have a copy of here. Yeah, she compared it to this book, which I have read, and as soon as she compared it to this book, I was like, so true. The writing and the main character is exactly like the main character, whose name I can't remember, Grace, in Crave, and as soon as she did the comparison, I was like, yes, the inner dialogue and the cringiness is exactly like Grace's cringiness in the Crave series. To me, this didn't feel like a new adult book. This felt like it was a really young YA book in terms of like how the main character talks and her inner dialogue. I felt like this, I don't know, her inner dialogue feels like something you would read on a Wattpad story, like that level of writing. Like, it sounds like if I was to try and write a book, like that's how my main character would come across. It was so annoying and so hard to read. And then I think somewhere, because we were reading like 5 or so chapters a day, I went back through the Discord to see my thoughts as I was going, and it looks like somewhere between chapter 6 and 11, I decided to audiobook it, and I don't audiobook a lot of books, but I was like, I don't think I can physically read. I don't think I can get through this without an audiobook. And everyone was like, just DNF it. And I was like, no, I'm hate reading at this point. I am determined to finish this book. So I did literally have to start listening to the audiobook just to get through my chapters a day. I mean, there was a couple of things I did like about this book. Our main character, Violet, I did appreciate that she had some form of chronic illness, and I mean, not that I can speak to its accuracy or like how well it's portrayed, but I did like that a main character in a fantasy book did have chronic rep, and I really liked that. I thought, you know, rep like that is important in books, so I did like that. And there were parts of her personality that I did like. I did like her compassion and her kindness, and I liked that she was a young woman who was, you know, scholarly and intelligent. She was determined and stubborn, and despite the situation that she was thrown into, she was determined to give it her best shot and fight for her survival. So I did appreciate those aspects of her personality, and I did like that she was quite a compassionate person. The scene where they're walking over the fucking ledge thing, I don't remember what it's called at the start, the trial that they have to make it over that, I don't know what it's called. I was going to say crevice, that's not the right word. Like the ledge thing at when the book first starts. And she gives the best friend her other boot, so because she knew that the boots wouldn't grip properly and the friend would fall. So I liked her compassion, and that was really sweet. Another thing I kind of did like was how instead of her strength coming from, you know, her ability to fight really well, her technique, I liked that she was able to use her intelligence to kind of fight in her own way by using poisons. I thought that was really cool, and tied in her being a scholar and her scholarly knowledge, her love of reading and gaining knowledge. I liked that she uses poisons instead. That was kind of cool, but then again, that was ruined by the fucking orange. Just, oh my god, the orange. That was so cringy. I can't find the line to give you the example, but it was something like she's about to like pass out from the fight, and then she's like, he was allergic to oranges, and then she passes out. It just, no, every good thing is ruined. Another weird thing that annoyed me about this book and her cringy inner dialogue was her use of the word fuck. It's a word to me, right? Like, I don't care, but it was how many times it was used. I wish I had have like taken a tally of how many times it was used in this book, because every second word was that word, and it was like you couldn't use any other ways of her like being there was no other words you could use to show her annoyance other than that one word. Just like say shit instead or something else, but that was the only word she could say, and she said it over and over and over and over. I guess I was dumb too in thinking that the cringiness of her inner dialogue and the lines would improve once she bonded with the dragon. Like, I really thought, you know, hearing the dragon talk would be cool, because like in my mind I had it like compared to like what's it called, like Priory, like how those kind of dragons talk, like they're meant to be ancient wise creatures, and boy was I wrong. It was still cringy, and it was more painful that it was cringy because it was meant to be this badass cool dragon character, and they were like, the way she described it, like him like almost rolling his eyes at her, I should have seen that coming, that wasn't going to improve, but it still hurt. One thing I did like about the dragon was the reasons why she was chosen by her dragon, that she was chosen for her compassion and her intelligence. I thought that was a nice and beautiful reason to choose her, and just showed the kind of great character and, you know, morality that she had. So, you know, that's one good thing I liked about it. Another stupid thing about this book was Dane, the character of Dane. I know I'm meant to hate him. Everyone that reads this book hates him. Everyone that loves this book hates him. Like, he's not meant to be a liked character, but he was so unlikable that it was ruining the book for me. I was just, shut the fuck up. I have never wanted to punch a character so much more. Everyone was like, yeah, Tamlin vibes. I'm like, no, this asshole is worse than Tamlin. I don't know, Violet, for a character that's meant to be super smart, does not use her brain for like 90% of this book. This whole like friendship thing they're going on, it's so obvious that Dane is not a good friend, and she defends him for like 95% of this book, being like, no, like, he's just looking out for me, like he's my oldest friend. And time again Dane has insulted her and insulted her ability and said, leave, like, you're not going to survive, like, you know, like, ordered her around, like, you know, that because he's the male person in the friendship, that she's just supposed to listen to him and take orders from him when he tells her to leave. It's almost, it's insulting. He insults her by, like, telling her basically, you're not strong enough to survive, like, leave. And she just, like, defends him for the whole time, and then sort of goes like, oh, maybe, like, he doesn't, like, maybe he is a little bit of an asshole. And you're like, how are you only realizing this, like, this far into the book? Use your brain that you're supposed to be super smart and you can't see that. Another reason why I thought I would really love this book was because of the character of Xaden, and it was, you know, it was enemies to lovers, so I was like, I'm in. And as soon as Xaden was introduced as, like, this broody male, like, you know, his parent was a traitor, so he's, like, you know, got this dark side to him, broody, like, everyone's afraid of him, and they described him with a scar, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna love it. And I didn't actually mind that for a little bit of the book. I was like, yeah, this is good enemies to lovers, like, he's gonna kill me, we're, like, you know, enemies, literal enemies. So, you know, that is something, usually a recipe for success in my mind. I usually love that stuff, but yeah, it fell flat. The second that him and Violet actually, like, moved past a little bit of the enemies, he was ruined for me. As soon as his character opened his mouth, he was cringy as well. He went from this, like, broody, mysterious, cool guy to, like, who didn't say much, to when he actually started to have lines, I then hated him and found him cringy as well. So she ruined the only thing that I liked in this book. I mean, that there were moments between her and Xaden, between, like, chapters 18 to 23, where they interact a little bit more before, like, the full-on interactions that I hated, that, you know, I liked. I didn't mind them. But then, yeah, like I said, it gets to them, like, actually being together, and I hated it. I would rather he actually want to kill her, to be honest. And this stupid, bloody, like, oh my god, he's gonna kill me. At the start, yeah, that makes sense. They're enemies, and he does, like, you know, fuck with her and say, like, you know, this place is gonna kill you, blah, blah, blah. I want to kill you. But you get to a certain point of the book, and it's obvious that he cares about her, and she just still seems to think that he's got it out for her, when time and time again he's literally saved her and he's looking out for her. Like, it's obvious that he cares about her, and she is so dumb and blind and being like, no, like, he wants to kill me. It was driving me nuts. Don't get me started on that cringy ass nickname. When he calls her Violence, nah, I'm done. That is so cringy to me. I can't. Don't get me wrong. I love nicknames. I usually love nicknames, darling, whatever. Like, I eat that up. But Violence, I can't do it. Let's talk about Xaden and Violet, shall we? There is a weird quote that made me so uncomfortable. And I'm trying to find it for you guys. I found it. Okay, so he's, like, teaching her how to, like, shield or whatever, because, like, the dragons are making them horny. And he's like, close your eyes. And then she's like, it requires touching me. My eyes flutter shut with the sensation of his skin against mine. And then he says this weird ass line, no, not at all. Just one of the perks of not thinking too clearly. You have incredibly touchable skin. Ah, ew, ew. And then we get to page 380 where they have sex. And this bit where she goes, I actually cannot deal. Using those talented fingers to stroke me into another orgasm, and light flashes again, followed by thunder and darkness. She literally sets off lightning as she's orgasming. It's the cringiest thing I've ever read. It makes me feel physically ill. I cannot. And then he's like, I've never lost control like that. And she's like, me neither. I've never had power to lose control of before. And then she's like, I sniff at the smoke in the air. And she's like, did I? And then he's like, set the curtains on fire? Yes. Ugh. Let's talk about the whole, like, Xaden betrayal shit. So I actually wrote in my notes, end of chapter 4 was actually kind of interesting, because in the Discord I was like, okay, I actually liked that section a little bit more. So that would have been about, like, I don't know what chapters there were. Definitely around chapter 34, 33, 32. The whole reveal around the venom thing or whatever they're called. That was kind of interesting to me. But it was ruined by Violent. I keep going to call her Violet. Hate that nickname. So yeah, the whole reveal around that he's been like chatting with the enemy and like giving them weapons, blah, blah, blah. And she goes on about this whole thing about how he betrayed her trust and like all of that. But do you think that he was going to come up to you when you were only just kind of starting to trust each other and like you've had sex like once, like calm down, and that he's just going to come out and tell you all of this stuff before when your relationship was already rocky enough because you're literally enemies? You think he was going to come up to you and admit that he was handing weapons to the enemy and this mythical creature that they didn't think like existed out of a storybook was real? Like, do you think he was honestly gonna come and tell you all that? And this whole thing, like, why didn't you tell me? The second you found out, you were like, you didn't believe it for a second. So of course he didn't tell you, even though when he did come and tell you eventually, and you didn't believe him for a bit. So what did you think he was going to do? Let's give some evidence to support my annoyance about the whole betrayal thing. So they're talking about it, and she's like, and they're all fucking traitors, so she didn't believe him. So why are you mad at him for not telling you earlier when you didn't believe him anyway? She's like, they're all fucking traitors and I fell for it. I fell for him. No, even my dragons knew, like everyone knew but me. And then she goes, the sweet glow of happiness, of love and trust and affection that burned so brightly in my chest just a few minutes ago sputters painfully, gasping for oxygen like a campfire put out by a bucket of water. Once it outlives its usefulness. The fuck is that quote? All I can do is watch as the embers drown and die. How was I ever foolish enough to trust him? How did I ever fall for him? My heart aches and my lungs ache and my heart screams. This can't be happening. I can't be this naive. So you didn't believe him, so why are you mad at him? Another super cringy line, the next page. They're still bloody arguing and talking. Yeah, and he's like, yeah, he sighs, this is not how I wanted to tell you. And she's like, assuming you were ever going to tell me. And then she says to the dragon, like, do you want to like add to this discussion, because apparently you knew too. And then the dragon's like, nah, I prefer you to come to your own conclusion. I chose you for your intelligence and courage. Don't let me down. She goes, I barely restrained myself from flipping the middle finger at my own dragon. The cringe. Yeah, and then she goes on and on and on. Like, quotes like, you twisted the truth to suit your needs. And like, you could have told me about this months ago, blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, he's like, you still love me? And she's like, no, I loved you. I don't love you anymore. You betrayed me. And then to nobody's surprise, Dane betrays them. And she's still fucking defending him. She's like, Dane would never. I'm like, oh my God. Use that alleged big brain of yours to see that Dane is an asshole. Are you dumb? Another thing that annoyed me about this book was the predictability. Yeah, this is nothing new in terms of the kind of fantasy formula. Just the predictability, right? Like, we were having a discussion in the Discord, and I think Meredith asked, like, what do we think Violet's signet, if that's the correct term, was going to be? And I said something like ancient, something that's super powerful, that like hasn't been seen for like thousands of years. Do you know how bad your writing has to be for someone like me, someone as dumb as me, to be able to predict that? The fact that I predicted that, I was like, oh my God, I knew it. I knew it was going to be something like that. Like, oh my God, this book couldn't surprise me. Another thing about that power is that she spends the whole book being like, I acknowledge that I'm a bit of a disadvantage at this place, like in terms of physicality compared to the other competitors. And she, you know, she acknowledges that. And then when she finally gets this ancient, you know, hasn't been seen in thousands of years, lightning power, she has the balls to complain about it. You know, she's been struggling to stay on the dragon. She's been struggling in the fight matches, but she's been struggling on the obstacle courses, and then she gets this sick ass, like, badass power, and she complains about it. Yeah, so they're talking about the guy she's just killed with the power, and she's like, I don't want to be a killer. I didn't want to kill him. And I can't understand, like, she's a nice person, but like, you're the one who was like, no, I'm going to stick this war college out. I'm going to be a dragon rider. Like, what did you expect was going to happen? You were going to go to war and not have to kill anyone? And she's like, it's an okay scene in terms of Xaden, like, he's actually doing something good for once and being like, no, like, you're badass, like, you know, this is your power, blah blah blah, like, you deserve it. And she's like, oh, I don't want this power, like, I don't want to hurt anyone, I want powers like someone else. You can't spend the book talking about your struggles to keep up and how you're at a disadvantage and then get a massive advantage over every single other person and complain about it. She's such an annoying ass character. And Xaden actually says something not annoying for once. He's like, stop fucking cuddling her. And that's so true. He's like, she's not a child, she's a full grown woman, a writer. I'm like, oh, thank God. And then Dane's like, you just want her to be like you, a cold-blooded killer. Aren't you all training to go to war? The other thing that was super predictable was the brother still being alive. I mean, I did accidentally have that spoiled for me, so I did see it coming, which maybe, I mean, even if I didn't see it coming, I don't think I would be that super surprised by it. Just another thing where I was like, yep, of course it's that. The other thing with the predictability was her bonding with the biggest dragon. Like, this book was like full of incredibly predictable, boring ass moments. Like, of course the weakest person is gonna bond with the biggest, most powerful dragon. Like, come on. Try and keep it interesting. Another point that is not an original thought, but I 100% agree with it, because I was going through Goodreads reviews and I was like, does someone else have the same thoughts as me? Like, or am I the crazy one? And I'll try and find the review if I can. I was just scrolling endlessly, so I might not be able to, but I'll credit the reviewer if I can find them. But they made a really good point about Violet's like progress at this war college, and you know, it's not like war colleges and training and stuff, it's very, very common in fantasy. And you know, what I like about it normally is that you see the characters progress. You go to classes with them and you see them get knocked down time and time again and get better and better. And what was missing from this book were the scenes where you saw her improve. There were a couple of training scenes, like, you know, fighting scenes, but they just turned into discussions between her, Dane and Xaden, and the scenes turned into drama about their fucking dumbass love triangle. Where were the scenes where we saw her progress and train and get better? Like, where are the scenes of her getting up at dawn? They just seem to briefly mention it and kind of like skip over it. I mean, there was the obstacle one, but she only kind of got the idea last minute. Like, you didn't hear about her practice day. Like, there was no scenes of her practicing, no scenes of her learning techniques, improving, getting better. It was just like she was kind of better at the end, and where we weren't with her to see that progress. We finished this review off with the chef's kiss final line after she's like healing, whatever. And then oh yeah, that's right, the final couple of chapters are in Xaden's perspective for some reason. It was so jarring in the audiobook. Anyway, he's like, I sigh and move to the side, watching Violet's eyes widen as she sees him standing in the doorway. And then it's like, told you I knew a better poisons master. I tell her softly, you weren't healed, you were mended. And then she's like, Brennan. She stares at her brother in open-mouthed shock. Brennan just grins and opens his arms. Welcome to the revolution. I just feel like I'm going crazy. Like, I feel like my opinion is wrong just because of the universal love for this book. My God. It's so cringy. It's literally like the cringy level, almost worse than the cringy level of Crave by Tracy Wolff. Like, I just feel like I'm losing my mind. Is my opinion so shit that I'm like one of the only people in the universe that hate this book and find it so cringy, predictable, and incredibly hard to get through? Like, I finished this book, which is a miracle. It put me into a reading slump, but I finished it. I almost forgot to mention, I ended up giving Fourth Wing 2 out of 5 stars. So this one will be definitely being unhauled from my collection, and yeah, donated somewhere to someone who will be able to appreciate it way more than I did. So those are my thoughts on Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This is meant to be like a 5-book series. This Rebecca Yarros wishes she was Sarah J Maas. This is like a shit attempt at being Sarah J Maas, honestly. I cannot deal. Yeah, so this is getting heavy. I'm gonna stop holding it. I apologize for this video. I hope it was okay. I feel like I jumped all over the place, so I'm gonna try and edit hopefully into some semblance of order in the book. I don't know. I really hope that this was okay. I'm really sorry if I offended you. This is my opinion, and my opinion is probably wrong because I am in the very tiny minority about this book. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you thought of Fourth Wing. Please don't unsubscribe. Please don't unsubscribe. At the end of the day, it's just my opinion. I didn't like the book. I'm not gonna like every book I read. I am just so shocked at how much I disliked this book because I went in with high expectations. I went in going, this is a book written for me. It sounds amazing. Like, this is the formula that I usually love. And, you know, maybe I'm hypocritical. I love Sarah J Maas and that is not a good book. And I like so many books that are similar to this book. So I don't know why this was the one that like broke me and why this was the one where I was like, no, this is cringe, because I've read some cringy shit in my life and I love it. Thank you again so much for watching. I'm sorry if you sat through this and you're a Fourth Wing lover. I appreciate you sitting through me shitting on your book. That takes a lot of kindness and guts, so I appreciate it. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this review, which you probably didn't. Yeah, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in whatever the hell I post next. Bye.